Hi, I'm Femi OK. On this episode of The Stream, Bangladesh at 50, we will reflect on the country's achievements, how it's tackling women's rights and developing as a democracy. You can be part of the conversation, of course, on YouTube. Jump into the comment section and be part of today's show.
Bangladesh has transformed itself in the past 50 years of its existence as a sovereign country. First, its economic miracle through sustained and continuous effort in the areas of manpower exports, developing its ready-made garments industries, its pharmaceutical strength, its online labor force, and from being an aid-dependent country, it has emerged as a lending country. In the areas of women's empowerment and incentivizing girl children to stay in school, this area has been replicated in many countries, and Bangladesh's achievement is tremendous.
Joining us to talk about their country at 50 years old, Umama, Ambassador Sally, and also Professor Ahmed. So good to have all three of you here. Looking forward to this conversation. Umama, would you introduce yourself to our international audience? Tell them who you are, what you do.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Umama Zillur. I'm a feminist activist from Bangladesh. I'm the founder of Kotha, a feminist organization based in the capital city of Dhaka. And I'm currently at the University of Chicago pursuing my master's in public policy.
Good to have you. Ambassador Sally, welcome to the stream. Introduce yourself to our global audience.
Hi. This is Mahbub Saleh. I'm a career diplomat of Bangladesh, currently posted to Brussels as ambassador of Bangladesh to Belgium, Luxembourg, and head of mission to the European Union.
Good to have you. And hello, Professor Ahmed. Please introduce yourself to the stream viewers.
Thank you, Femi. Well, I'm Professor of International Relations at the University of Dhaka and also the Director of Center for Genocide Studies at the same university.
So, guests, we're going to talk about some key issues that impact Bangladesh, some key achievements as well. I'm going to start with something that's incredibly positive. I'm just looking at here from Rabab Fatima. UNGA adopts historic resolution to graduate Bangladesh from the least developed country category. What an achievement on 50 years of being known as Bangladesh. Ambassador, talk to us more about this. What does it mean?
Thank you. Thank you, Femi. As we all know, we are celebrating 50 years of our independence, and we're also celebrating the birth centenary of founding father of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And what a better way to celebrate this when we got the final recommendation from UNCDP in February, and eventually on 24th of November this year, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution, and Bangladesh officially would graduate in 2026 from the least developed country category. It has been a very challenging journey. We have done it. We are still doing it. We would continue to improve upon what we have already achieved. We're not complacent. We are happy. We are delighted, but we are not complacent.
Umama, I want to share with you a tweet that I remember seeing a few months ago, and it tickled me because it was the Global South, Bangladesh, giving a hand over to the Global North, saying, hey, we can help you. Here on my laptop, this Salim ul Haq. Europe can invite Bangladesh to provide technical assistance on adaptation to climate change because Bangladesh, once known for the natural disasters, one after another, has managed somehow to work out climate adaptation to an extent that it's able to offer technical assistance to other countries who haven't got there yet. Umama, tell us more.
Yeah, I think in our journey, in the last 50 years, one of the things that we've been able to do without taking notes from the global north or the quote unquote west is disaster management. An image of Bangladesh that we had in the global landscape was that of flooded villages, flooded cities, people struggling. But from that, we have a very resilient people in this country. And we've been able to be very innovative in terms of cost effectiveness, in terms of even just innovative disaster management processes, so that now we are able to share those with countries abroad. So I think that's one of the areas that I would say that Bangladesh has been able to be incredibly impressive, along with our work in poverty alleviation.
Professor Ahmed, I want you to listen to Professor Parvez, who has some thoughts about the...
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Okay, we'll come back to you, and I'll come back to you in just a moment. I'm going to pray in Professor Parvez, who has some thoughts about the economic development of Bangladesh. Ambassador, I'm going to ask you to respond to this. We'll play the video and then respond immediately afterwards. Here we go.
The economic success of Bangladesh is a contribution of the poor people, remittances sent by the low-income migrants, and also the contribution of the ready-made garment workers. Bangladesh is now a home of new millionaires, but the real contributors behind the development struggle to live a modest life. So the question is, in future, whether Bangladesh will sustain this economic development by inclusive democracy, or it will continue to become an authoritarian state.
Ambassador, I'm going to start with you and then go to Professor Ahmed. This idea of this economic development, the gains that Bangladesh is seeing, but can it keep it up? Go ahead.
Certainly. Bangladesh would definitely keep it up. If you look at the numbers, the figures of how we have been reducing poverty over the years, particularly in last 12 years or so, the extreme poverty has been brought down from more than 20% to now 10.5%. This figure clearly speaks of what we are capable of doing. So there is no doubt in my mind that we would continue this journey, and we would definitely be able to keep this momentum, and this would be a sustainable development for all of us. And if you look at the other indicators of socioeconomic development, I think there has been a very progressive journey over last 10, 12 years, 12, 13 years or so. So there is no doubt that we won't be able to maintain that. We would definitely be able to maintain that. There should not be any doubt in anybody's mind.
Professor Ahmed, I hear a great optimism from the ambassador. That is an ambassador's job, all right? So let's dig a little bit deeper about the economic progress of Bangladesh, because you also have millions of people who are still deep in poverty. Your thoughts?
I think sometimes we forget that this is an 8th largest country in the world. It's 170 million people. And on the top of that, in 2017, we had 1.1 million now, literally a bigger population than Bhutan inside Bangladesh. Don't forget, Bhutan took 50,000 years to become Bhutan, but this became Bhutan inside Bangladesh, or more than Bhutan, in less than 3 months. Now, it's a big country. It's not a small country. So I understand some people, they get impatient. Simon, who's a former student of mine, I think he got impatient and probably left Bangladesh. And I don't blame him, because the infrastructure has not kept up to the mark. The education and health are also something that we need to work on. But to say that we have not, worked, from the last 50 years, that I think would be very wrong. And I can say myself, because I was a student of Class 9 back in 1971. I left my parents. I went to Agartala, to India. I literally slept on the pavement. I have seen genocide. I have seen millions of refugees and how they live. Now, from there, if I come now, my God, it's a development, I think, that Simon and some of the youngsters have never seen. So I understand they get impatient. Not too many people are patient like me, but one has to understand the sacrifice. And not to mention, we also forget that we had the history is really bad. 200 years under the British, and then 25 years under Pakistan, 2 genocide. Take all that into account, and then you talk today as a little bit of, doing well, relatively model, Human Development Index better than India in many respects, of course, better than Pakistan. I think one should say, wow, that's not bad.
All right, you just did. Mama, I'm going to share some stats here from the World Economic Forum on my laptop. So what they've been doing is been tracking the gender gap between men and women in terms of jobs, in terms of pay. Have a look here on my laptop since 2006 up until now. So Bangladesh is doing pretty well for its gender gap compared to the rest of South Asia. And where you're really flying high is in political empowerment. You are 7th for political empowerment. But then going back to health and survival, educational attainment, economic participation and opportunity, much lower on the ranks. So let's talk about some of the powerful women who have led and who are leading Bangladesh. Does that offset some of the inequity between the way that women, most women in Bangladesh, live their lives?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think in terms of the political empowerment indicator, if we actually look at how many women who are in the political landscape, how many of them are able to move with agency, are able to bring new laws into focus, are able to practice their full rights as a parliamentarian or someone in the field of politics, I think there we see not such a happy picture. And I also want to bring it back to lived realities of everyday women. If I recount one of our statistics from a national COVID poverty study that we did, women faced a 5 times higher unemployment rate than men 1 year into the crisis. And one of the hardest hit categories of women were housemates, who are already in a vulnerable position, even when we are not in the middle of a global pandemic. But they have been hit the hardest, both in terms of unemployment and also facing constraints getting back into work. And I think I would say that the power that certain individuals hold does not translate to empowerment for everyday women in Bangladesh.
Why is that, Omama? Why does not having powerful women in politics mean that women are empowered all the way through Bangladesh society?
I think that has to do with our culture, our institutions, and I don't think either of those, our society or our institutions, are built to allow women to live as full, free human beings. That's why we saw last year during the pandemic, in the middle of one of the worst times of the coronavirus in Bangladesh, we saw hundreds and thousands of women on the streets in one of the largest anti-rape movement that the country saw. During the pandemic, they were out on the streets demanding for freedom. One of the main slogans was "Mukti chai Rakkha noy." We want freedom, not protection. So that really tells you that women in this country don't feel that they are able to exercise their constitutional right to live as full, free human beings. And I think that has to do a lot with our institutions, which are not built to function as they're supposed to, ensuring the rights of the citizens of the country.
So, Ambassador, earlier we spoke to Human Rights Watch. We told them that we were looking at Bangladesh 50 years into its People's Republic. And this is what Heather Barr wanted to raise in this conversation. Here she is.
We released a report last year on gender-based violence in Bangladesh based on interviews with survivors and experts and activists, and the findings were alarming. One particularly grim example of this was a woman who had endured domestic violence for 12 years. She never went to the police because she didn't believe that they would help her until eventually her husband attacked her with acid. And after that attack, when she'd lost one of her eyes and one of her ears, she finally went to the police, who told her that they didn't believe that it was her husband who had done it, and so they weren't going to do anything. There's a huge need for reform, and that reform has to include providing services for survivors, reforming the justice system dramatically to make sure that survivors are treated fairly in court and that all the people involved in the justice system treat them with respect. And there's also a major need for legal reform to overhaul the laws and make sure that victims' rights are better respected.
Amasa, I'm just looking here about what your Prime Minister has said about sexual violence against women. Laws alone will not suffice to prevent violence against women. We need to change people's mindset too. Ambassador Sally.
Certainly, what she has said is certainly correct from a societal perspective. It's all about the mindset, how we look at our society, how we treat women. But I'm a born optimist, and I would say we have come a long way. And I'm not saying that there is not gender-based violence. It's a phenomena that exists not only in Bangladesh but also all over the world. Domestic violence is a global phenomena. Legal reforms, of course, it's a continuous journey. And if you look at the law, if you look at the family court, on the basis of a complaint lodged by a woman against her husband, the first thing that is done is to arrest the husband. And then the investigation takes place. So I'm not that pessimistic. I think we've come a long way. The women protesting for their rights on the street itself certifies that they are free to protest against the oppression. They are not only protesting against the oppression, they're talking about their rights. So this is certainly the openness of a society and a transparency of a society. But I'm not saying we don't have challenges. We do have challenges, and we need to continue the journey that we have undertaken. And I always feel that it should be a holistic approach, taking everybody on board. We should move forward.
Oh, Mama, you look like you're about to say something, so go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Ambassador, I just wanted to ask a question. So it's really great to hear your support of last year's anti-rape movement, which has continued on to this year as well. And across most of the major protests, there were very concrete set of demands that were put forward, and especially in terms of legal reforms. The Evidence Act, which was set to be repealed in September's parliamentary session, also marital rape. Is still, Bangladesh is one of the countries that is still not considering marital rape as rape, which essentially sends a message that husbands have a right over the bodies of their wives. So these, I think, also do have an effect on people's mindsets. Can you share a little bit about why there's been such a slow movement from the government's end to make progress on these law reforms?
Well, I think the government of Bangladesh, particularly the current government of Bangladesh, is very sensitive to the demands of the civil society and what the common people on the ground are saying about their rights, about the kind of atrocities or oppressions they are facing. And the legal reform is a long journey, as you know. It doesn't happen overnight. But whether there is a political will at the very top, among the lawmakers in the parliament and also in the bureaucracy, that's more important. And I see a gradual change for the positive towards moving forward, and not only in the sector of legal reform, but also it's a societal movement. It's a journey that we all are undertaking. It's not easy. Sometimes it's a bit more challenging, particularly in a country of 165 million people in 144,000 square kilometers. Okay. We are the most densely populated country. So these are the challenges.
Professor Ahmed, I have so many thoughts and questions from you, from our YouTube audience. Bangladesh is on YouTube right now. Professor, I'm going to start with you. This one comes from Hossein. Very brief response, please. Hussein says, we are still waiting for real freedom, voting power, freedom of speech. Your immediate brief response is what?
No, you can raise all sorts of questions. That is, I think it's quite fair. But as I think the ambassador was also saying, that you need to see a kind of a bigger picture. We can go on and keep on debating and keep on arguing about all these questions. and all the challenges and all the drawbacks. But what do you want to see? 170 million people just faced a pandemic, and even in pandemic, there was a relatively, I think the people managed well with the Jew-NGO partnership, as I said,
Professor,
Rohingya issue,
can I give you a couple of,
1.1 million refugees.
Can I give you, if I may, can I give you a couple of concrete examples? For instance, we asked a number of journalists if they would come to talk to us there from Bangladesh. They were afraid to come and speak on this programme. If you have a look here back on the back wall, this is a protest from the opposition parties to the current administration in Bangladesh, and you can see that they're being beaten by police. I feel that this is what there are a lot of people online who are saying that there isn't democracy, that there isn't freedom in Bangladesh. I know it's difficult to crystallise this, your response, in just a minute or so, but how would you do that? If people are saying we don't have freedom right now, giving you two concrete examples.
As an academic, I'm not a person in the government, so I have no idea. Probably the government can respond more, correctly. As an academic, I understand that this is something that one has to work on, and people are working on. It's not like we are writing, we are doing the research. It's not going to change in one day, But then it will also not be fair just to keep, putting that, making that a central understanding of things when it comes to 50-year celebration. Nobody is saying that, the things are perfect, that, we have, everybody has right to say everything. Nobody is saying that. There is patriarchy, there is masculinity. And it's not Bangladesh alone. Look at whole of South Asia. Look our neighboring country, which has a longer democracy. But look at the kind of regime that is there.
Okay, Professor.
So
let me move on and share some of these YouTube questions, some of the heavy lifting with your co-panelists. Mazad8, thank you for watching right now. I'm going to put this to you, Amama. Can you really have a sustainable development without proper democracy? Again, that democracy question. Amama, go ahead.
Yeah, certain questions come to my mind when we think of Bangladesh and the question of democracy. Can a country where a kidnapped writer, dies in jail be considered a democracy? Can a country where women are having to take to the streets to demand justice because they have zero faith in institutions and complete faith in the culture of impunity that exists in Bangladesh? Can a country where school student protesters are beaten and their protests and their voice suppressed because they're demanding their right to be safe on the roads of their country, can a country be considered a democracy where those realities exist? And I will leave that up to you and our panelists and our audience to answer that question.
I want to go back to the words of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, here on my laptop. If I can provide food, jobs and healthcare, that is human rights. What the opposition is saying, or civil society or your NGOs, I don't bother with that. I know my country and I know how to develop my country. Ambassador, final thoughts on that take?
Sure. Whether you talk about food or healthcare or accommodation or jobs, these are certainly human rights, no question about those. The kind of images that you have just shown on the screen, those were from one of the protests lodged by the opposition, as you were saying.
Ambassador, we're in the last final moments of this show.
Yes.
Final thoughts on Bangladesh at 50 in a sentence. What would you say?
Bangladesh is a democracy. There has been sustainable development, particularly in the last decade, and we would continue this sustainable development. No question about it. We are an inclusive society.
Happy anniversary.
It's a pluralistic society.
Professor Ahmed.
It is a secular society.
Anumama, thank you for coming to the stream to talk about Bangladesh at 50. Thank you, YouTube commenters, for your comments. Appreciate you bringing them to our show. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.